Hotepu gatekeepers and our allies, this is His Royal Majesty Ra Sumabathagbemi, the world's first openly African gay king. And the role of a king is to feed and nourish his people. And today I nourish you with knowledge of the Kemetic calendar and ancestor rituals. I want to explain how ancestor rituals work, how ancestry works, and the afterlife. Basically, on the screen here, this next shot you see shows a man being born from his DNA. And to understand Kemetic rituals, you must understand they are ceremonies designed to help you bring out what's called Osar or Osiris, which would be your good DNA, the good traits of your DNA, both your biological traits, your psychological traits, and your emotional traits. You want to bring out the best in yourself ancestrally, and the way you do that is through this image here, called the opening of the mouth ceremony. Now, before I explain this a bit, let's go to the core root of ancestry, which is called this tree of life. Many call it the Kabbalah, or the tree of life. And many people teach that this tree is to be used for the living, but this is not true. This is the tree of the dead, the tree of the eternal life, and should be used only by those who understand how to work with their ancestors and your ancestry. Now, you see here 10 circles called 10 spheres in color, these colored balls, linked by these pads or these wires. And this is the lowest one, called number 10. Pink is 9, orange is 8, green is 7, yellow is 6, red is 5, blue is 4, black is 3, gray is 2, white is 1. So it goes from 10 to 1 this way, or from 1 to 3. You bounce back 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, this tree is what the Dogon called a granary, a place where you store grains. These are the grains of ancestral karma. And when you leave your body, what happens at death, when you leave your body at so-called death, your physical body, what happens is your subtle bodies, your Ka, your Shahut, your Ab, your subtle bodies, your Ren, they are absorbed into this tree. And each of these spheres are worlds. These are ancestral islands. So you have ancestors that live in this sphere, 10th sphere. Some who live, when they died, they moved in here. These are all astral addresses. This is the earth address. So some ancestors who stay here are earthbound, what's called hungry ghosts or dark deceased. They stay earthbound here. This is the earth sphere. This is the moon of number 9. This is Mercury, Sebek, number 8. This is Sesheta, number 7. This is Ra, number 6. This is Mahus, number 5. This is Sefket Abut, the queen of the 7 liberating arts, or of education, initiation, number 4. This is Ptah, number 3. This is Ma'ah, number 2. This is Hapi, Osar, number 1. So, based upon how you lived your life, when you shed your body, your spirit bodies will be drawn to reside in one of these 10 spheres if you're lucky. Now, there is this, where you see this tree, the same tree, but here you have a reversed one, an upside down one. This is called the tree of death. Okay? And the tree of death is if you lived a bad life, where your spirit will reside. In other words, this tree here of life is where your good ancestors live, your good DNA resides. This lower tree is where your bad DNA and your evil ancestors, the rapists, murderers, liars, thieves, bad mothers, bad fathers, they live here. But there's something that's not known about this image. Now, this image you'll hear many Kabbalists, many people of Tree of Life tell you, there's this tree of life, and beneath it is this tree of death. This is not true. This tree is the same size as this tree. The tree of death is the same size as the tree of life. But what you want to do is realize the tree of death is actually behind the tree of life. They are like parallel, like two books stacked on a bookshelf, one in front of the other and one behind the other. So this tree of death is behind the tree of life, and it is made of like a sooty, slimy, tar-like energy. And when you have evil ancestors or your bad habits, if you're an alcoholic, a drug addict, anger issues, if you're a thief, a murderer, a rapist, that means you're tuning in to these ancestors. You're tuning into that slime. Now this tree sits behind the tree of life, and there's a space between the two. Okay? Like a sandwich standing up with space between it. Two pieces of bread with space between it. Okay? When you do something negative, when you capitulate to your evil ways, what's happening is it's oftentimes a bad ancestor, a hungry ghost, dark deceased ancestor, who is influencing you, who is trying to strengthen their dark DNA, their evil DNA. What actually happens is between these two parallel trees, there's that space. That space is very important. When you do a bad, evil thing, the dark tree here sends, it's like a slime tunnel. It projects this kind of slimy tunnel which attaches to the back of this tree. So let's say the evil sphere number 4 in this tree will, when it's activated, will deploy a slime tunnel. It's like a thin slimy tendril that will attach behind this tree of life's number 4, forming this slime bridge. Once this bridge is created and it attaches to the back of the tree of life, the good tree, this ooze comes out. This ooze goes from this tree of death into the tree of life, trying to infect the tree of life, trying to slime it, trying to infiltrate it. If you keep doing that bad habit, the slime infiltration will enter the tree of life, and if you keep doing it, it will create what's called the evil seed. The evil seed. A little tiny seed will then lodge, like in the movie Aliens. It will lay a seed egg inside of the good tree sphere, and it will, like a parasite, begin to use the light of the tree of life to feed its little inside alien egg. And the more you do the bad habit, the more that slime enters and that seed gets stronger, gets more energized, and eventually that seed hatches inside the tree of light, the tree of life. When it hatches, it grows into what is called in Kabbalah a golem. Yes, the same golem you heard about in the Lord of the Rings series, that creepy golem creature. Well, the word golem comes from the Kabbalah literature, and it's a kind of evil elementar creature in the spirit astral realms. So every time you do that evil act, this seed, this infiltrating seed, this dark seed, like a parasite, sucks the light out of the sphere it landed in, like in the movie Aliens, and it feeds on that light, like in the movie Aliens, and forms a golem. And that golem tries to infiltrate the light and to make the tree of life's fruit, that fourth sphere in this case, become rotten fruit. It's very similar to, in the movie The Matrix, how Smith would infect other programs in the Matrix. That's a very accurate metaphor of how this actually works. Because I've actually traveled to the spirit world to see the tree of life and to see the tree of death, and I did not see this. It did not look at all like this, where there was one above the other. No, they're parallel. They're equal size, and they're equal. They hovered on the equal same square of space, basically. So whenever you're doing something bad, know you're infecting yourself, and you're also poisoning your ancestors who are good. These are the good ancestors up here. These are the bad ancestors down here. It's actually be behind, right? Like I said before, behind this one. So every time you on Earth do something wicked, you're actually letting that negative ancestry invade the ancestral realm of light. What will happen over time if you keep doing this, for example, if number 4 here is being infected, the ancestors in that sphere, in that world, will go to war to protect that world, to protect this bubble. And if it means getting rid of you, they will take you out. Meaning your good ancestors will recycle you. They will end your life and recycle you because you're becoming a dangerous threat to their world, whatever sphere you're letting that slime, dark seed, golem enter. So that's the whole premise of this image. This image was to prevent the slimy ancestors from coming into the ancestors of light, and to remind you, don't be the one to let that dark force into those bubbles, those spheres, because they'll take you out. Because all things will defend themselves. And those spheres, these spheres are living worlds, and they have their own defense mechanisms. And if you are a threat, you will be taken out. When you get an ancestor reading in an oracle that's negative, like a hungry ghost reading, it's telling you that's a signal that they are aware that you are beginning to infiltrate and create slime in the tree of life, and if you don't stop it, they're going to take you out. They're going to end your life. Okay? Now, look here. This is the mummy, or cocoon, and here we have a ritual called the opening of the mouth ceremony, whose function was to, by touching magically the mouth of the deceased with these sacred objects here, peshin kafu and water and mesketu, these are different tools for opening the mouth of the ancestor, to open their memory. The mouth means memory and self-image, and to allow them to speak. And you open their eyes, you open their nose, you open their ears, you open their tongue to give their senses back to them in the West, in the spirit world. And it's a rather elaborate ceremony, which we duplicate in the Golden Beetle at a certain time of the year, which is coming up very, very soon. I'll discuss that at the very end. But I want to bring your attention to something very interesting and very, very clever by the Africans of Kemet. So this is the cocoon of the deceased. Mummy is not a good word. Cocoon is a better word. Note these white panels. If we go horizontally, there's one, in terms of rows, row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 rows of panels on this mummy. Now, those who know genetics know that 9 is an important number in terms of reproduction of genes and spindles and chromosomes. That number 9 is very key to the reproductive cycle. And here we have an image. Let's see, do we have the image here? Yes. Well, most DNA, well, the DNA has 9 little of these little, see these little lines here? If you count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 right there, and there's 9 right here, hard to see. Within this loop, there are actually 9 little, there are 9 lines, and look, they're doubled. So you have left and right, left and right, left, right, and a space between them. If you look here, left, right, space, left, right, space, left, right, space. They encoded in this image their understanding of the 9 basic strands inside of a DNA molecule. A DNA twist, I should say. DNA twist. Okay? So this is showing you that they are programming the good or the pure DNA. That's why it's shown as the white color. And here we have Anpu, the god of mummification, and one of the criers of the deceased, both touching the phallus. Look, Anpu's hand is on the phallus, and so is the woman's hand, meaning reproduction. That they are stimulating him and stimulating his reproductive energies. Okay? Now, as you saw here in the Tree of Life, there were 10 bubbles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 colored basic bubbles. And in this image, you saw there were 9 levels, which we saw was the DNA molecule here. Okay? But you can count 10, where this up here is the 10th, this white cone. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then this makes 10. This is the 10th sphere. This is 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th sphere. So this is another representation of these 10 spheres, only shown more poetically, more graphically. Okay? So, that's how ancestry works. So when you pass away, where will you go? Which sphere will you ascend into, or which sphere will you go into that's dark? If you go into a dark ancestral world, that means you're going to reincarnate with a lot of family problems, a lot of bad luck, a lot of bad life conditions, a lot of bad habits. But this ceremony prevents that from happening. Now, when do you perform this ceremony? Well, we perform it once a year. In my last video on the African calendar of Kemet, where I did a reading on Oprah Winfrey's chart, I broke down a bit of how the readings are performed. Every year, during the 3rd month of the year, of the Kemetic calendar, the 3rd month after the Halakha rising of Sirius, this is called the month of Het-Hert, or the month of Het-Heru, called by the Greeks Ateri, or Atiri, but the actual name is Het-Heru. And we are in the 3rd month of Akhet. So in the 3rd month of Sirius, and the 3rd month of the season of Akhet, of flooding. This 3rd month, called Het-Hert, or Het-Heru, is owned by the goddess Serket, the scorpion woman. And every year, in the 3rd month of Sopedu, of Sirius, in the 3rd month of Akhet, the season of flooding, on the 2nd day of the 1st deacon, called Ushati, begins the great ancestral rituals. So that began about from today, which is the 29th of September 2016. This began about 2 weeks ago. Yes, it began. I can count the days here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. About 2 weeks ago exactly began this process when the ancestors began to awaken, and this tree here became extremely active. There's this time in the Kemetic calendar of 1.5 Egyptian weeks, which means a deacon is 1 week is 10 days, so a half week is 5 days. So there's a time in the year, once a year, where this tree becomes extremely active, like all the lights turn on and all the gears start cranking up, and the ancestors are very active. They're very ready, because Serket is the goddess of the dead. She owns the house of Scorpio, the scorpion house of the ancestors, the dead. And so at this time, for the last 2 weeks, your ancestors have been extremely active around you, trying to talk to you, trying to give you signs, omens, help counsel, warnings, punishments, all those kinds of things. So this is the height of the gay kingdom's ancestor ceremonies. Now this is true for all ancestors, but it was the gay ancestors that revealed this to me. But all your ancestors, no matter what your persuasion is, are very active right now. And tomorrow, on September 30th this year, is the most powerful day. It's when the ancestors are most powerful, most active. It's most important that you, on that gate, that day that opens, what we call a gate of power, of astrology, that you honor your ancestors. Okay? Now, I will be teaching a workshop on basic ancestor ceremonies based upon this image. How to feed them so you get good DNA. You get good DNA coming out of you. You remove those bad habits. You remove those problems in your life that come from your bloodline. A lot of your problems are not yours. You inherit them from your bloodline. For example, many diseases you may have, you have a predisposition on some level with your ancestors. So if you don't deal with your ancestors and you have a history of cancer or fibroids or diabetes in your bloodline, if you do this ceremony and you go into what I call power state or spiritual trance state, and you commune with these DNA strands, you actually commune with them literally, with your chromosomes, and you project certain images to your chromosomes. You find the chromosome for diabetes, the chromosome for breast cancer, the chromosome for Alzheimer's. And this time every year, in the third month of Sopedu, in the third month of the season of Akret, on the second day of the month of Hether Serket, it's the same pattern. It'll be the same for many, many centuries for now. If you go into that time, this is the time to clean it up and to do meditations and visualizations and rituals to weaken that cancer gene, to weaken that alcoholism gene, to weaken that hothead gene. The Kennedys, for example, all had a DNA, they all had a family pattern of tragedy. One of the most famous, powerful families in history. But it's uncanny how the theme, the bouncing ball of horrible death tragedies follows that family. That's clearly a genetic issue, a DNA issue. That means that there are ancestors in this slime tree who are very active and are not being stopped and are killing and doing mayhem, and it's not unheard of where families hurt each other. Most battery cases are by the husband. A lot of abuse cases are by the parents. A lot of murders of spouses is done by the spouse, the other spouse. So it's not unheard of or strange to hear about how your own family and those closest to you may be the ones who want to do you in the most. So your evil ancestors are going to want to also do you in. It's likely. So you have to stop it. You have to stop this flux of this evil slime. And this was the ceremony of ceremonies that prevented that. And that ensured you went into the tree of life, that you were into a safe address, and that world, that bubble, that sphere of the tree that you're in has its defense mechanisms. Okay, much like when Harry Potter, when they had to defend Hogwarts and they put that bubble shield around Hogwarts. And Voldemort was trying to break that shield with his magic and his Death Eaters. That's kind of how it works. You have to keep the shield strong so you can get the good DNA coming to you. So on the 30th of September 2016, do what you can. If it's just a little candle, just some water, get a little salt, add some water to it, or actually a little, just pour salt and baking soda together on a little offering plate or something with some water and some frankincense and myrrh incense, and burn that to your ancestors with a few fruits. You see here, he's burning incense here. He's got frankincense and myrrh in here. He has a water jar here. He has some basic foods and breads and cinnamon sticks and things like that here. So I teach a very intricate and elaborate ceremony to really reprogram those DNA molecules. But do what you can tomorrow. Don't miss tomorrow, September 30th, 2016. If you do miss it, you've lost that gate on the 31st of September, or the next day. The gate closes until next year. Think of the things in your life that you see you're repeating in your family, things you don't like. When you make that offering tomorrow, you want to visualize yourself not doing that. Visualize talking to your good ancestors to increase the force field of protection from that bad habit of eating sweets when you're diabetically predisposed, of being so hot-headed like your grandmother and great-great-grandmother, of being so mean, or whatever your problem is that you know you inherit from your people. And just simply visualize not doing that and praying to those ancestors, praying to those DNA molecules, those chromosomes, to stop it. That will work. That will begin the change of Ashe, the change of Chi, to help bend this DNA into a better form, into an Osar. Because this is an Osar figure, meaning good DNA. Okay? So this video, I pray, was helpful to you. I will be doing workshops. Look out for the announcements for them on more ancestor work. But I wanted to clarify a lot of misconceptions about the tree of life. It is not for the living, it's for the dead, the living dead, the ancestors living on the other side. The tree of death is not beneath the tree, it's behind it. You want to prevent slime tunnels being formed to attach to the tree of life, depositing a dark seed to become a golem. The golem is your alcoholism, your addictions, your bad habits, your bad ways from your people, and the ceremonies for getting rid of it, which you see here on the screen as our last screenshot. Okay? This is a very important teaching, how to handle your ancestry, because you're not an island. You are from something, and that something is still with you. As this image shows, he's the next phase. He's carrying this in his hands, his little contribution of a much more ancient stream of ancestors who carried in their hands their portion of DNA. Okay? I pray you enjoyed this. Dwawen Hotepu.